All right, I think we are live, or at least it seems like we are here. I'm going to do a few shares here. What's up, everybody? I'm hanging out here with my friend Dylan Carter. We haven't hung out in a while, and Dylan's been working on some crazy stuff, so I'm excited about that. I'm super tired today. I don't know why, but I'm drinking coffee this afternoon to try to stay awake.
Don't worry, me too.
Are you really?
Yeah,
So
we get these triple shot La Colombe coffees, and they're delicious. They really, and they're small, but it's supposed to be like
is that like a
three.
local brand? You're in Florida now, right?
No. So we're in Boston.
Boston, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's a pretty big. I mean, they're not like super out there, but they have a few cafes here. But yeah, you can get them in most grocery stores now. They are insane. Like I just got another shipment of 3 boxes of 24 because we go through them so frequently.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
So
They're really good.
you're way past the
The
yeah,
single cup.
the
Yeah.
caffeine threshold for me. I can't have
Yeah.
more than like 2 cups a day. 2 cups is like my max. So
Yeah.
I've got my seller meetup cup that says being a CEO is easy. It's like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire. You're on fire. Everything is on fire.
That's so true.
That was what we gave
It's
all of
so
our
accurate.
speakers at Seller Meetup as
Oh,
a
that's
gift.
so cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I got 45 minutes of sleep last night, if I'm being honest. So I'm like nice and wired up. Yeah. Just a weird night. Like went to bed. We pushed out something new last night, and we were up pretty late. And so by the time I got home, took a hot bath, started to relax. I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm sleepy now. And I have this habit of laying on an acupuncture mat while watching Star Trek Next Generation to fall asleep. It's a beautiful mixture. And laid there and just laid there for like 7 hours. And then
Oh
my alarm went off. I was
no.
like, this is terrible. But
Oh
it
no.
happens. Not frequently, but it does. So
Oh my
yeah, it's all
gosh.
good.
So I'm doing this thing lately because I was not getting a lot of sleep either. And I was just,
Mhm.
my routine was just sucking. Like I wasn't taking good care of myself. And,
Sure.
it just, we get out of a good routine sometimes.
Sure.
And so I was like getting up in the morning and I'd be like right on Facebook on my phone. And I was
Yep.
just like not taking care of myself, whatever.
Yeah.
So my husband Rashid and we came up with this strategy because we wanted to also show our kids that, it's before we mindlessly escape into video games or
Yeah.
apps or whatever, we wanted to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our environment,
Totally.
and our mental health and our commitment. So those are the 4 things. So mental health is number 1. So we
Okay.
read or do like prayer, meditation.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is self-care. So exercise, taking care of your body, all that kind of stuff, and your hygiene, all
Yeah.
the stuff that kids sometimes need a reminder on, and
Yes.
us adults sometimes need not as strong of a reminder when it comes to the BO department, but but our kids, need that. And
Sure.
then our number 3 thing that we're doing is taking care of our environment, taking care of the
Mm.
things around us, making sure
Sure.
that where we are is nice. And
Yeah.
then finally, our commitments. And once we're done with all of those things, then we're allowed to like mindlessly escape into video games or
Sure.
Netflix or whatever. But it's been tough. It's been like every time I want to get on Facebook or on social or
Yeah.
whatever and just get that quick dopamine fix or
Sure.
TikTok, I'm like, okay, crap, I got to take care of myself first. Fine.
It's funny you
So,
mentioned that. So I struggle with that as well. I do active recovery protocols, and each person has their own thing. So I have one in the morning, which I call like my power hour kind of thing. And so it's a cold shower. I meditate for 15 minutes. And then I do the 5-minute journal. I do the app actually. So I'm doing a bit of gratitude. And I'm just kind of like preparing myself for the
yeah.
day from like a what's the term? Can't think of the term now. Hence lack of sleep. Either
So
way.
basically, before you're letting outside influences into your
Yeah,
mind,
before you
like
get
news
stressed,
or
right?
someone else's feed, you're
Yeah,
like putting things into perspective from your life.
exactly. And I've deleted Facebook, I've deleted Instagram, haven't jumped on TikTok. So I have no social media apps outside of Pinterest on my phone. And then midday, I do another active recovery protocol. Typically, I'll do like box breathing. I'll do another 15-minute meditation session. It's basically like, as you come into the day, you have a ton of energy and then it just hardcore depletes and then you need to replenish it, especially like with what we're doing. We're moving so fast right now and I'm managing so many different things that, it's draining at times, right? Just because there's so much volume of it and it's never ending, that I'll take a midday, I'll eat and I'll go do this. And then in the evenings, I have like a power down ritual kind of thing where like the whole next day planned out, all my tasks were on my calendar, like even broken
So you're
down,
not staying
right?
up all night thinking about it.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
Like you're like, that's in the plan. I'm fine. I can worry about that
exactly.
tomorrow. I'm going to bed.
And just go to bed. Yeah, exactly.
I love
Which
it.
did not happen last night, but that's okay.
Well, I suppose we should kick on off this podcast.
Yeah.
If you guys want to join us, we're going to actually talk today about a lot of fun stuff. We're going to talk about pricing because Dylan created a repricing app, which is cool. But and pricing has changed, and so has reselling on Amazon lately. So that's cool. But Dylan's also working on helping people sell their products B2B, wholesale. So we're going to talk about that. And that's one of, the topics that's near and dear to my heart as well. So I love that we get to nerd out about that today. If you guys want to join us in the Zoom, I'm here with Carmel, Scott, and Vlad, as well as Dylan. And you guys can join us at sellerroundtable.com/live. We're here hanging out and I'm going to hit the recording button and we're going to get this party started. Are we ready?
Nice. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Game face, game face.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Amy Weiss here, and my buddy, Andy Arnott, is not here today. He has a sick kid, so, he's excused today. There's a lot of sickness going around lately, but we're here with our friend Dylan Carter, and we are on episode 138 of the Seller Roundtable. I'm so excited to talk to our old friend Dylan again and find out what he's been up to and what's going on in his world. And there's some really exciting things. So we're going to talk today with Dylan about pricing. Like pricing's a thing, right? We've noticed it on the private label side. We've noticed it on the reselling side. So we're definitely going to talk about some pricing trends today. We're also going to talk about setting up B2B channels, wholesale channels for your private label products. Dylan's working on a special project there. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Welcome, Dylan. Please tell us a little bit about you for the folks who don't know who you are.
Yeah, that was a lot of buildup. I like it. We'll see if I can live up to it. Yeah, a bit about myself. So was an Amazon seller for a number of years. Like most Amazon sellers, I started with RA just to kind of test the waters, right? I kind of wanted to just prove that it was real because I'm like, I heard it on podcasts. I don't know, we'll see. And proved it was real. I was like, all right, this is cool. At the time, I was a full-time personal trainer. And I would spend every free hour I could sourcing. And that was fun. But I got to a point where with the personal training side, I decided to move away from that. One, it just, for me, my life always comes down to scalability, right? So it's hard to scale your time. And I had this weird conundrum where I built relationships with my clients, but the only way to make more money was to charge them more money. And that wasn't really a route I cared to go. It just felt kind of conflicting. And so I was like, you know what, I want to find something a little bit more scalable, and physical products was that thing. And so I quit that, tripled down on retail arbitrage, and then just spent 10 hours a day sourcing. Then quickly realized, okay, it's still my time, right? Like I might be able to get sales in my sleep, but I'm still having to spend 10 hours a day sourcing. And it wasn't a whole lot less hours that I was working compared to being a personal trainer. So I was like, what's the next most scalable thing? Well, in my mind, it was online arbitrage, right? I can do it from my home and like, I don't have to jump around, and, it's easier to buy and then ship to, my house and deal with everything. So went that route, and it was interesting. I wasn't that great at online arbitrage, if I'm being honest. And then hit a fork in the road, a major one, first one in this story where I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's not something that I think I could grow into like a sustainable great business. So I need to figure out what I want to do business model wise. And so I thought, okay, I got wholesale or I got private label. For me at the time, private label was, going to cost a lot more money than I had available. And it was going to test, right? It's like, I realistically had one at bat and I was like, listen, I'm paying the bills with RA right now and, not living lavishly. So one at bat doesn't work for me. I need multiple. And so that's when I started to consider wholesale. And I realized with wholesale, I could cash flow more quickly, right? So I could be paying myself actual money in a salary within 30, 60, 90 days, right? Depending on how quickly I could figure it out. And so I set a rule for myself. I said, I'm not allowed to buy inventory, even if it's profitable, unless it's wholesale. You got to figure it out, burn the bridge. And that's what I did. And, struggled for 3 to 4 months. It was really tough. And eventually I did figure it out and grew that business where I was self-sustaining. It wasn't lavish life, but, I at that point decided to go back to college full-time as well. I had left a toxic relationship and was like, I got to work on me, So I went back to school full-time actually as a finance major at UNF, did that full-time while running the Amazon business. And it was great. Life was awesome. And then I was talking with as many 7-figure wholesale Amazon sellers that I could find. And I was like, hey, I'll pay you for your time. It's all good. And only one of them responded back. And that was my now co-founder, James. He's like, hey, don't worry about it. Let's just jump on and chat. I was like, all right, sounds good. So we started to meet once a week, just holding each other accountable, kind of like a mastermind, right? Just him and I. And eventually I found out he actually had a degree in computer science. He was a full-time college student as well. And so he kind of teased the idea of software. I'm like, that sounds interesting. We'll see here. And he had built out vendrivecrm.com already. And it was cool because, independently, we had built our own systems for managing how we find suppliers, using spreadsheets, Trello for me. And he basically built a web application that did that, but pulled in ASIN information, which was fantastic. And so we joined forces. We actually met on Instagram, which is funny. We worked together for 1.5 years on the business before meeting in person. And we learned a lot. We built a Facebook group. We taught, we used to teach wholesale sourcing live for free every Tuesday. I mean, for 2+ years, I think. So we built up a nice audience. We had learned a lot. We failed tremendously on the software side because we had no idea what the heck we were doing with VinDrive CRM. It still exists, which is cool. We stopped paying customers there, but we decided we wanted to kind of up the ante. We wanted to take on a larger challenge, and that challenge ended up becoming repricing. We realized, the area that needed a little bit more innovation and could be done better and was within the wheelhouse that we were capable of achieving was repricing. And that's when we started working on Aura. So James pretty much locked himself away. That's actually him right back there. Locked himself in a room for 80 hours a week for 8 or 9 months and built out the entire thing himself. Like I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't help, but I flew out to his college between semesters on winter break and we launched Aura together. And then I flew back and went back to classes. And so we that took off. We've been growing that like crazy. Now we're a team of 6. We got to have our own office in Boston, so we're all co-located here. And we've got some stealth stuff, I guess you can call it, that we're about to launch. So it's been a lot.
I love it. So you're right down the road from Takeometrics and
so they're 2 blocks from my apartment, actually.
Oh my gosh. What about
I walk by their office.
Chris?
I don't know.
You haven't met
I need an intro.
E-commerce Chris?
I don't think so. I might need an intro.
He does a conference called Seller Velocity. And his company is E-commerce Chris, and he is a former Amazonian. And so he has a lot of connections, and he helps sellers with reinstatements, suspensions, that kinds of things, account management, that kind of stuff. And he's just really, really cool guy to know. So I'm going to have to make that introduction.
Yeah, give me an intro. That sounds awesome.
I mean, I just got a Christmas gift from E-commerce Chris, and it was honestly the coolest Christmas gift that I've ever gotten from anyone. Awesome. And so, he's a good guy to know because he sends really great Christmas gifts.
Right.
Anyway, no, he's just a good guy too. He's been on the podcast a couple of times. Cool. He's a good friend of ours. But I'm going to have to make that. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to make an introduction.
Appreciate it.
because you got to know him, and especially with what you're working on. Because
Yes.
I spoke at Seller Velocity all about selling your private label products in retail stores and brick and
No
mortar,
way.
and that was a big hit. And so with the project you're working on, that'll be good.
There we go.
So, let's just talk about pricing for a moment.
Sure.
On the private label side,
Mhm.
pricing has actually become a thing. It didn't used to become a thing, but or just didn't used to be a thing.
Mhm.
But now Amazon is starting to do competitor research and
Yeah.
starting to look at other, like if you're selling on Walmart for whatever price, and then
Sure.
you drop your Amazon price or you raise your Amazon price, you can get kind of a pricing violation alert, and this can
Sure.
cause problems. The other thing with private label is if you change your price any more than 2% of the last buy box price and you're not using the sale field, you can lose the buy box to yourself. People are like, but I'm the only one in the buy
It's
box.
insane.
Amazon doesn't care. They're going to put you in the other sellers category, and people have to click other sellers. So that's what's been going on in private label. So pricing is important in private label.
And we can talk about that too, because I think there's a lot to talk about just for that.
Let's talk about it. What have you seen on that side?
So it's less about what I've seen and just more like what I've noticed with a lot of sellers. So I've never done private label, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt, please. I know a lot of private label sellers that do it full time. And there's this interesting issue where somebody will say, I'm a private label seller. I don't fully know what that means sometimes, because sometimes it can mean you're building your own brand. It's good. Sometimes it means white labeling, meaning you took the exact same product and you threw your label on it. And that's like, there's no differentiation, right? So let's talk about that, because that fundamental assumption is incredibly important. A brand exists. The term brand exists for a reason. That's why people pay other people for brand marketing. It increases the perceived value. So here's what's interesting. You have, I think, a lot of people that are really doing white label. They're not really creating a company, a brand. And
they're just picking a commodity product and they're slapping their label on it, which is white labeling an existing product. And suddenly you have many people competing for the same buy box.
And it's not even just that. It's like, now you're competing solely on price
and reviews.
So here's an issue. I jumped on a podcast this morning talking literally about wholesale pricing strategy, right? You don't just sit down and say, okay, well, my COGS are this, I want to charge X, and like, that's a cool gap. Like, you need to think that through a little bit more strategically, especially if you want to go B2B. Now you got to factor in that margin hit, right? And that's okay. But what I find is a lot of people get a little too focused on the Amazon side, and they basically create a brand that is overfit for Amazon.
Yes.
Right. And that becomes a problem. Look at Anchor. Anchor started on Amazon.
Margin for B2B.
Correct. And you end up shooting yourself in the foot, right? Anchor started on Amazon and they did it right, but they also got off Amazon as well, right? It wasn't just like, I'm going to be on Amazon and like, that's the whole shebang. I think that's a great launch thing, right? It's a great way to build a brand, get buzz. There's demand built in. You don't have to go build that out yourself. But here's the thing. When you transition, when you shift over from white label to, let's not even call it private label. Let's just call it building a brand. That's really all you're doing. When you do that, you approach things completely different. It's like what I tell people with wholesale. When you just approach a brand and say, I want to give you money and buy your things and sell them, good luck. When you approach it as a relationship and you go more deep into the business aspects of it, the game is different. You're playing a different game, right? So a lot of people say, oh, there's so many sellers on Amazon, it's saturated. No, it's not. There's a ton of sellers, but there's nobody really competing. It's a very small number, and we got to keep that in mind.
You can control your price because you're offering something that a customer cannot get elsewhere, and that something matches a pain point, and that something is something you can protect. You now own your price point and you own your strategy, and you can build in the margin to be able to scale very quickly.
You can position the brand, the product, right? So I'll give you a great example. I just bought a new DOP kit. because I wanted something a little bit smaller because I travel once a month and I'm like, I'm sick of packing a suitcase. I'm just going to do it all. It's a weekend trip anyways. I'm going to pack it into a briefcase. And I was looking, and listen, there's a ton of private label options on there that are 12 and 15 bucks. I paid 50. Why? Because I found Bellroy, which is a brand, and I could tell that the quality was good and it felt like a brand, not just something somebody put up. It's different. I literally think about that as a consumer. I literally paid dramatically more money for a product. It's not cost anymore, right? That used to be the case, and I don't think it is anymore. But think about what that enables brand or Bellroy to do. They can go wholesale now. It probably cost them 15 bucks to manufacture. They're selling it at retail for 50. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, a retailer will say, "Hey, I'll buy it and I'll make a $20 profit on it." Cool. They still have profitable margins, right? So your pricing strategy when you're talking about creating and bringing on a new product line needs to take a little bit more time, in my opinion. I see a lot of sellers when I ask how do they approach it, they go, "Oh, I see the market and then I see the price point." I'm like, I get it logically, but I think you're missing the point a lot of times, right? It's not just, well, they seem to be around 20 bucks, but like, what could you do to make it worth 50 and people be excited for it? That's interesting, right? So,
right. And you also have to be careful with that too, though, because
sure,
there's certain markets that that don't do well. If you're just because you're building a brand doesn't necessarily mean somebody's willing to pay $30 more for your particular toiletry bag.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's very important to make sure that you can actually meet that price. Yeah. And what I love to tell people is look at the market price. The if I'm selling something that is, a fancy coffee mug or something, or a fancy water bottle, whatever, right? And if I'm selling this, I'm going to look at the market price for stainless steel, really nice. Okay, probably around 20 bucks for something like this, right? And now I'm going to differentiate it in a way that matters to the customer and in a way that I can protect my brand and my price. And I might go a little bit higher price, but what I want to do is I want to make it so easy for that customer to choose me.
Yes, absolutely.
I want them to go, "Oh my gosh, look at that."
Yeah.
It's almost the same price. It's just a little bit more, but it meets my need and it's a real brand, right?
It's the value relative to what I'm paying, right?
Exactly. And that's all it comes down to feel like they got the value that they paid for that product. So, if their unboxing experience and they get it, it's like that expectation versus reality thing. And you're like,
exactly.
"Oh, what is this? It's terrible," right? So I love it. And how was your unboxing experience with Bellroy? Was it good?
Honestly, it was great. Yeah.
The quality?
Honestly, it was fantastic. Like at no point was I like, pay too much for this. I was like, no, that's about right. I'm not like ecstatic. It's a toiletry kit, right? But I'm like, no, that fits my needs. I'm good. Like, and I'm happy with it. And I'm glad I didn't get something cheaper because that's what I currently have. So
I love that you bring that up though, in terms of pricing. I agree. Like so many people are, the other problem that I see people do with pricing, especially when they are white labeling or private labeling, is they'll pay too much to the supplier. So they're basically shopping on Alibaba, right? And they're reaching out to all these suppliers and they're like, "How much is it?" That's not the conversation you want to have with a supplier. And then you're immediately telling that supplier that you're a noob and they're going to give you a crazy price because they're not going to expect to get a reorder from you. And you're going to pay this crazy price. And then I have people coming to me going, "I hope I can sell it for $50. And I go, "Well, wait, this toiletry bag looks the same as this $12 one. What makes you think you're going to be able to sell it for $50? Well, I don't know. I'm hoping I can do better photos." Okay, but the market price is $12 for this type of toiletry bag, right? So that's the other thing that I see people doing. So when you're thinking about your pricing, you need to look at the market price. You need to look at the value you offer. You need to make sure it matters to the customer. And then you need to, what we do in our program is divide by 7. And if we can't source that product at scale, divided by 7, then we go, this is not the product for us, right? Unless it's a more expensive product, then we'll go down to like a 5X, right?
Makes sense. Yeah, totally makes sense.
But that way we have that built-in margin to not only Amazon margins now, like it's like 40% for fees and everything else. It's
Sure.
crazy. So
But pause on that for a moment, right? So a lot of people complain about fees, and listen, I get it. I've paid them a lot as well. My thing is like, it's all about perspective, right? Like what you're really doing is you're giving Amazon a B2B commission to get you sales. That's all you're really doing. So it's like, if you look at brand to retailer margins, it tends to be 40 to 60% of a markup. Sounds about right. So actually it's actually on the cheaper end of what it would be if you go B2B.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is we have no qualms about saying, oh, well, this retailer that's brick and mortar wants a 60% margin. Yeah, I'll pay that all day long. Wait, hold on. There's no difference. The only difference is Amazon can command far more demand than your average retailer can.
Yes.
So
well, your average
perspective.
retailer, but they can't command as much demand as a major retailer. If you get
oh God, no.
Costco or
yeah,
Walmart
totally different.
on the shelf, like that's life-changing money. That will make your Amazon sales look like a penny.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to brands.
There's a lot to go to get there, right? We're not just going to
1000%.
We're going to start just like we did on Amazon with one product, one little market. We're going to start with one little brick and mortar retailer,
exactly.
One online retail, one small online retailer. So I love that. Yeah. So as far as pricing goes on the, you guys have the Aura repricer. What's going on? I want to know what's going on on the reseller side, because I've noticed that Amazon really is putting a premium on making sure that you're a registered brand. Like if you're not a registered brand on Amazon, your life is hard. You can't advertise in half the places. You can't. And now they're starting to really lock down brands and make it very hard for resellers. So what are you seeing in that market and how's that working?
Yeah. So less on the brand registry side, more on, I mean, this is just everybody, but like the insurance side, I think everybody kind of got caught off guard where they're like, prove that you have insurance right now. So there's a lot of anxiety, right?
Or more in sales. Yeah.
Sure. So for us, the interesting thing is during COVID, the algorithm for the buy box kind of shifted. So you started to say, okay, well, people can't ship things into FBA. So that's a no-go. Merchant fulfilled is an option. So we're going to prioritize merchant fulfilled. So we had a lot of sellers that were basically, what the strategy used to be is if you're FBA and the current buy box price is FBA, you would either match or reprice below by penny. We can talk about that and why that's not a bad thing. I know it's a misconception, but if it was merchant fulfilled, you would actually reprice above by 2 to 3%, and you'd be able to pull the buy box up because technically you're a better offer based at least on the shipping time, right? Shipping and handling time. That changed though in COVID. I mean, most of our users transitioned from FBA to merchant fulfilled, and they're like, I can still offer 2-day shipping. I can't do it nationwide, obviously, but there is such thing as a regional buy box. Yes, we typically only see the one, like for us, because we're using the Amazon MWS API, we only see one buy box. There is no like concept of regional, but they exist. And so what's interesting is a lot of sellers, once that started to shift back over in favor of FBA, once the logistics problem was kind of solved, started flooding inventory in. Well, why would you do that? You get more distribution, which means you get more access to regional buy boxes. So wholesale is a great example. If you're moving, let's say 100 units a month on average, bump it to 150, 175. Most likely you'll find as long as you're going into new fulfillment centers, you get access to new regional buy boxes, which is super important, right? If you look at the algorithm there, it hasn't changed a ton. I mean, the biggest thing that we recommend, and we've unfortunately had to tell a few users, hey, like no repricing tool can help you right now because your seller feedback is so bad, right? So repricing is a thing where it's not a silver bullet. Nothing ever is. It's a multiplier, right? So if you have amazing seller feedback, if you have, good buy costs, if you have enough SKUs, it's a no-brainer. It totally makes sense. And it's going to pay itself off within a few days.
Yeah.
But if you come in and you're like, I have 2 SKUs, I overpaid on all of them. The buy box is below my buy cost. And I have 20% seller feedback. Yeah. Can't do anything for you. you have deeper problems, right? So like
Yeah.
most things in business, it comes down to the fundamentals, right? Like it's just
Like
getting the
looking at
fundamentals right.
where you can move the needle, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
okay, that makes sense. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask you, oh, something that's really cool for private label sellers and brand registered sellers is the pricing strategy that is a lot of fun is, you know, that big red banner that shows up over a price?
Yes.
That's when something is at its lowest price in 30 days.
Okay.
So if you guys want the banner over your sales, you can, and that can sometimes make a big difference. Just make sure you just lower the price slightly so that it's the lowest price in 30 days. If you're going to lower the price more than 2% of the last buy box price, though, make sure that you're using the sales field in the offer tab of your listing so that you don't lose the buy box to yourself. So that is something to think about in terms of pricing. We talked about wholesale pricing, like leaving enough margin, how you should think about pricing your products in the market. Awesome. Anything else about pricing that we should know before we move on to adding a B2B channel?
Yeah, there's a handful of things. I did a podcast this morning and I pretty much laid out all the potential options and it's a lot and we'll cover a few, right? It's not necessarily just choosing your wholesale pricing. You got to have it. But what's within that, right? It's not just a price, right? It's not just 50% off of retail. You need to think through that long-term strategy. Where do you really want to take this? Do you want to be in Walgreens? Fantastic. That's a different discussion. If you're like, hey, not really, but I do want to be in a ton of independent retailers because that's kind of my brand. Fantastic. That's a different version as well. You're trying to think through what's the volume that you can expect on average, right? Because you might want to have volume-based discounts. This is very common when I was a retailer, right? 0 to 100, you're paying $10. 101 to 250, you're paying $9.50. You need to think through that, right? This is why coming into your wholesale pricing and having enough margin is incredibly important. If you get this too low, you run the risk of a very large regional retailer, as an example, coming in and say, hey, we want to buy 1,000 units. It's a ton of money. You're super excited, but the price we're willing to pay is X. Well, one, you're a small brand compared to a massive regional retailer. So they have the power in this power dynamic situation. So it's pretty much like either accept it or don't. And you don't want to find yourself in a weird position where you go, I could accept it and get the cash flow. But the issue is I'm not going to make any money. And by the way, they're probably going to want net 30, net 60, net 90. So now you got to cover the cash flow within that period of time. That's a problem, right? So we want to think through, like, are you really positioned and ready for going B2B? So I tend to recommend, like, the average benchmark, and every industry is different. Luxury tends to have much higher markups and margins, but 40 to 60% is very common in B2B as a margin. So I would say try to be a little bit on the higher end there, either through reducing COGS or getting your retail price in a good spot there. And obviously that's a lot of strategy there as well. The point here is you want to be able to have a flexible pricing structure that makes sense for most retailers, because you don't want to have $1 million contract on the line and not be able to take it simply because the pricing doesn't make sense. And I've talked to enough brands that listen, like I talked to one the other day where they had a massive grocery chain come in and negotiate. And she's like, I'm taking that money. Like, it overnight, there were 75% of their wholesale B2B orders. I mean, that's huge. And like, of course they want net terms and, special discounted pricing because the volumes that they're going to pull, right? You're talking about going from an average of, let's say, 250 units B2B wholesale order to 1,000. I mean, it doesn't seem like that big of a leap,
Huge.
but it
can
can be.
Sometimes containers full of products.
Yes. Pallets,
and orders
man.
straight from your supplier, which is
correct.
It's huge.
Yeah.
One of my clients has a deal with a distributor and in another country, and that distributor
Gotcha.
orders straight from there. They're one of the major distributors for their line of products in all of Europe, and that distributor just orders straight from their supplier.
Yeah,
So
right.
you just get a check. Like it's just like
Yeah, sure.
stupid money, right? So
Yeah,
now, they're starting to compare what they sold on Amazon with what they were able to do in wholesale. And
yeah.
it's like 80-20. And they're like,
Yes.
for all the extra work that Amazon is compared to the work that we had to do to get in with this
Sure.
distributor, like it's a lot of work up front, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about with your pricing and with getting everything ready.
Yeah.
But now, once they get that pipeline going and they can keep it filled up, it's
Yep.
like mailbox money. It's stupid, right?
Sure. Sure. And a lot of the brands we've talked to, so all the brands we've talked to are direct to consumer, but they also happen to directly sell wholesale to retailers. That's like our sweet spot with the new product we're working on. You tend to see a process and systems issue as well, right? So, Amazon, direct to consumer, you get that figured out, you're good. Wholesale is a little different, right? So we already talked about, you got to figure out pricing and make a few decisions there. But the process for a retailer to pay you money oftentimes gets overlooked. There's so much friction, right? Listen, I've been a retailer, a small online retailer, buying directly from brands. Every brand was different. And that was a problem because I would forget, to be honest. Like, I don't even know if like my pricing is up to date, that this is an issue.
Right.
And so some I'm like, oh, that's right. I have to call you and give you my credit card number to place an order. This other one, I have to e-fax them. This other one, there's a web portal. And so it becomes a problem, right? The simple fact is you are in competition with other brands that retailer could carry. Mm-hmm. So which one do they prefer? Assuming profits and all that stuff is equal, they prefer the one that has great communication, that has a very clear process and structure in place for placing orders, to where there is no guessing. There is no, I know your price sheet says $20, but we negotiated an extra 10% off. Where do I see that? Oh, we're just going to remember. Okay, I hope you don't miss a day. And then your team member doesn't apply that for me. Now we got to go back and forth. And now we're risking potentially the relationship itself. Yeah. There's a whole lot here, right? Like you can see, I mean, do you want to accept net terms? Can you afford to? Is it net 30, net 60, net 90? What makes sense here, right? When do you, when don't you? Are you going to run credit checks? Great. How are you going to do that? Right? How are you invoicing? Because you're not just getting an order, you're getting a purchase order. You got to convert that over to an invoice, and that's going to come back and get paid. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to work on with the new product is streamlining that process so it is standard and it's just way easier. I mean, listen, placing a B2B order should be just as simple as placing a direct to consumer order. If I'm on Shopify, it should feel the exact same as if I'm on VinDrive placing an order. And that's kind of what we're looking at here, right? We're trying to say, listen, if you already have the relationships and wholesale in place, that's fantastic. Come on board, we'll streamline things for you. But if you're brand new, we have a little bit of opinions built in so that it is much more clear cut and you don't have to worry about it as much, because there is a lot to manage.
Making it, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, what we do when we get wholesale orders, we just manually invoice in QuickBooks.
Right. And that's
and like
very
you
common.
said, it's going to be getting those repeat orders and remembering to follow up and all of that is, it isn't easy, it's another process. So yeah, I think making it easier is good. There are, I know you guys are working on a product where you're building a wholesale side of Shopify so that people can basically take B2B wholesale orders on their Shopify, which is really, really powerful.
So not necessarily, sorry to cut you off, not necessarily on Shopify. So basically, where Shopify is just an assumed thing for direct to consumer, right? If you're going to go build your e-commerce site, you're using Shopify. We want to build the B2B version of that. So it's its own application, it's its own whole thing. And so it's a platform really. And so there's two hemispheres. One hemisphere is the platform where you're able to manage your current relationships. Your retailers are able to see pricing specific to them. If there is volume discounts, if you've pre-negotiated anything, they can see inventory levels in real time if you have that connected as well, right? So that side, we're trying to reduce the friction of them placing a wholesale order while also reducing the friction for you to process it, right? So we'll integrate with QuickBooks as an example. So, a workflow here would be you would receive a wholesale order, you would review it and say, this all looks good to me, approve it, create the invoice, and then that could be automatically sent over and handled in QuickBooks if you wanted. We're actually doing payment processing on platform. The second part there is how do you find retailers? This is a major hurdle.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Because So what I do right
Mhm.
now is I have a wholesale section of my website,
Yep.
right? Where you can
Everybody
log
does.
in, you can create an account, all of
Yeah.
that. But most retailers that I work with don't use that. Like
Right.
they prefer to not have an account somewhere that they have to manage, right?
Yeah.
They prefer to just, you invoice, you follow up with me, it's all
Yeah.
good, right? So what we've actually found to work really, really well, but there's a kind of a, either use a platform like Fair,
Sure.
where there's a lot of retailers that are already looking for you, and they
Yeah.
can place an order right on platform. They can
Yep.
find you and place an order right on platform. But a lot of retailers are not on Fair.
Absolutely.
So then that's when that outreach comes in, and you have to like find those things.
Sure.
So we use a system where we search, we scrape different platforms, right?
Yep.
We look at like Yelp for local businesses, that
Sure.
kind of thing. And then we have this database called AnyBiz that has
Okay.
over 15 million businesses in it.
Nice.
And we can search for various types of retailers around the world.
Perfect.
And then it actually sends email campaigns out.
Nice. Okay.
But still, you still have to follow up. You still have to do that.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear how you guys are
Sure.
finding the buyers.
Sure. So this is interesting. This is Hemisphere 2. So this is a marketplace. You mentioned Fair. Fair is going to be one of our competitors. So Fair is very similar to Amazon. The customers, the retailers on Fair are Fair's customers, not your customers. Hence why they charge commission, right? That commission eats into your margins, right? We already talked about margins already being slightly tight. We're not taking that approach here. So we're fundamentally against commission. We're saying, hey, that's not the case here. What we are instead doing is like a Slack model, if you will, right? So it's based on active retailers. And so we like Shopify, you don't say, hey, go to my Shopify site and buy my things, talking to an end consumer. You say, go to my site. We want VinDrive to be that as well. We want you to say, buy directly from me. So a lot of the brands we've talked about will say, you can buy directly from me, or you can buy on Fair. What we want to say is you can, when you say buy directly from me, you're actually talking about the VinDrive platform. Right. So there's some white labeling going on. So it's like
here. You're the Shopify of
correct.
Or exactly. You're the WordPress of
correct. We're the platform. Exactly. Now we do have a marketplace. I think this is important. A lot of the brands we talk to, when we ask them how do they go about finding retailers, they're like, I kind of Google and like, but here's the thing. A lot of retailers don't have websites. Massive ones do, but that's, you're not going to just go to Walgreens.com and be like, hey, I'd like to talk to you guys. They have a completely different process. Right. So you have good inbound on sites like Fair because retailers are trying to find you. When we looked at the data after talking with like 300 brands, is you have a lot of first orders, but hardly any recurring second, third, fourth, fifth orders, and the order volumes
there as well.
Low. And here's the interesting bit. I would ask you, okay, so how much is your average cart total, if you will, for direct versus Fair? Dramatically different. We're talking like $1,500. $150. Okay, that's not a wholesale order. $150 is not a wholesale order. That's just a very large bulk in retail discounted order, right? So we don't have that incentive because we don't make money based on commission. We don't need you to lower to increase sales. Don't need it to. I don't really care. So what we're saying is we charge based on active retailers. So if you work with 300 retailers in a year, but only 20 of them tend to place an order every single month, we only charge you for the 20. So now we're incentivized to say, hey, you tend to place an order every month, but it's been 3 months. Maybe you should place a restock order here, right? So you mentioned retailers don't want to have an account. Let me explain that because I've been there. They don't want to have 1,500 accounts. This is the problem. Yes. Because you're like, what was that login? Oh my gosh, was it this way? We are structuring VinDrive so that a retailer has a retailer account. There's a retailer side and a supplier side. Or a brand. A retailer can have connections just like a supplier can. So a retailer can
kind of like Fair, where they have that account and they're able to then search and they're able to pay right there and they don't have to worry about it. And
but we have connections. But here's the interesting bit. Fair says you're taking the order, right? Unless you're going to cancel it, like you don't. There's no relationship. It's purely transactional. But as well as I do, B2B is relationship based. It's not transactional based. So for us, we said, okay, there needs to be a layer where you both opt in. Just because somebody's willing to give you money doesn't necessarily mean it's good. This is a lot of what we heard with the fair people we talked with, where they're like, yeah, I'm getting orders, but it's like going to a farm. I sell things that are not farm related. They're just buying it in bulk, right? It's not wholesale. I'm not really helping my brand. So for us, we say, okay, a retailer can find a brand, but a brand can also find a retailer. So it's very difficult for a brand to proactively go find new retailers to have conversations with and start a relationship with. It's easier for a retailer to find brands all day long, right? I can just go on Amazon and find brands, but do the inverse. Hence why you have to scrape so much data.
Like we reach out on LinkedIn, we do different things, you make phone calls, but you have to find the right person who's going to be interested, so it is very difficult.
But what if on the platform, you go and you find a retailer and the types of retailers that your brand and products do very well with? It could be a certain category, a certain size, certain geographical location. And you can go and search and find as many of those as you can that are on the platform. And you reach out to the person who's in charge of that. It's no longer about trying to use hunter.io to find the right email address and hack in LinkedIn to figure out who's in charge here. The person who's running Wholesale is running that account. And so what's great is you get to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to request to connect. A connection, once you both agree, means you have a relationship now. And it can be severed at any point, right? So if things go wrong, you'd be like, hey, this is not good. You can no longer buy from me. But you get to reach out. And so there's this interesting problem where when you're getting started, especially as a smaller brand and you're wanting to go B2B wholesale, you don't have enough brand recognition yet to have retailers search for you. They might be looking for products like yours, but we want them to look for your brand, your products. That's different. But how do you get there? It's a lot of outbound. To be honest, it's a lot of sales. When I talk to brands, they're like, I hit up the trade shows, I do sales, I hired a salesperson to do it, right? But what if you could just sit down and have a straightforward process where you can say, I know what does well, what kind of retailers we work with that has super high throughput, all that stuff, and just go find more and start having great conversations. And eventually over time, they start to find you as well because you've built up that brand recognition. Here's what's interesting as a second order effect. You do that enough with the small to medium retailers, large box retailers start to take notice.
Yeah, because you're getting traffic in your store that they're not getting because they have interesting products. That's the reason that they all hate Amazon because there's so many cool products and that are not available in their stores. And the brands that are on Amazon are not big enough to sell in their stores and are not set up to sell in their stores. So it's really interesting. So you're still in beta.
We are, yes.
I love your passion about this platform. And I think that a lot of our listeners are going to be excited about checking it out when it comes. But what is your advice for, we're almost at our hour today. What's your advice for folks right now, where they're at, about getting started in that B2B relationship? Like, what do they need to do? So when your platform is up and operational and great, what do they need to do? What are some DIY methods for getting started and getting moving in selling your products B2B?
Yeah, there's three major pillars in my mind that really will set you up for success, and that don't need to be perfect, but need to be at least somewhat thought of. One is your pricing strategy, right? This is like fundamental. If you get this wrong, a lot of second order things start to go wrong as well, right? You don't want to find yourself saying, oh, this is an incredible opportunity, I want to go that route, it sounds fantastic, and then realize you just don't have the margin for it. It's not going to work, right? So if you have a current product line and you want to make wholesale work there, great, start there and see if you can make it work. If not, unfortunately, you might either need to raise your price, which you might have needed to do for a while anyways, lower your COGS. Maybe you are paying too much. It's always a good conversation to have and to think through, or launching new products that are a little bit more tailored to be able to go. So here, a second, kind of strategy here is you have wholesale items that are really meant for branding, to get people to like your brand, to then search your other things and then buy your other things directly to you as an end consumer, right? So you have a lot of opportunity here, but I think you need to get it right. You need to think it through, right? And it's not just the price, it's recommended MSRP. Do you want to have something like a map? If you're, anywhere really map is applicable, but that makes sense. If you want to have volume-based discounts because you anticipate being able to sell 1,000 units a month to a retailer, great. Think that through. And you don't have to get it perfect, but think it through. And there's a lot of different methods here, but there's no need to make it super complex. Dual pricing is very simple, right? This is why we charge for retail across the board, whether you're buying it from me or one of my retailers. And this is what I charge for wholesale. And it all makes sense where, everybody's getting enough margin. Number two is really the systems. You need to think through, how are you going to receive a order? What you don't want to have happen is a retailer get excited that you sourced yourself and say, great, how do I submit an order? You go, send me an email, right? It's like, it can work, but listen, you're stepping into a different world now. This is not just Amazon. You're talking to professionals now, right? So like every interaction is a reflection of you and your brand that you're building. And you got to think through that, right? Because if that retailer's like, it wasn't really that good of an experience, it seemed kind of risky. Well, maybe they're not going to come back. And that becomes a massive blow, one, to, what you've been working on, but two, the business itself. So you want to think through, how do I make this easy as possible? And role play it, right? Set up a simple process to be like, okay, if I was a retailer, I go to pay me money or submit a PO. What does that look like for me? How many steps am I having to do? And let's work to reduce that. And obviously you're going to do a basic beta, if you will, and you're going to launch that. And you're going to say, okay, retailers that I've found, you can submit orders. And then you have feedback with them. Hey, what did you like about the process? What did you hate? What was too time consuming, right? You got to think through all these things. And then the third one is really thinking through how you're finding retailers, right? You got to go get them. It's sales 101. It's not the sexiest thing, but if you want to jumpstart that, you're going to have to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to find retailers. It does take time. And it's not just get a retailer. You're trying to find the right types of retailers, right? You don't want hundreds of retailers that place one order and then never come back. That's not how you build a sustainable business. And that's what we're seeing a lot on with the brands that we've talked about with some of these marketplaces. They're like, I get a ton of orders, but if I look at the second and third, they don't exist. I'm like, great, that's not a relationship. Right? Because now you're constantly have to find new retailers. Instead, it's kind of like a portfolio, right? You really want to build a nice relationship with a handful of retailers that are consistent.
And that's why we love Amazon, because sales are consistent.
Yes.
So if we want to have the consistency off of Amazon, we have to work towards that. And I love what you 1,000%. Said about like think all the way through the process. Okay, someone wants to make a wholesale order for me today. What the heck do I do, right? Where is inventory located? Yeah. How do I even invoice for that? How do I collect a credit card payment?
What if they ask you for net 30?
Huh?
Right. What if they ask you for net 30? Are you going to be like, oh, let me figure that out? Or, hey, actually, we don't do that, right? You got to think these things through. I was talking to that retailer or the brand I was talking about earlier, where they had a massive regional brand or retailer come through, place a huge order, and they want net 60. And she's like, one, cash flow is going to be tough. Two, inventory, that's dramatically more than, like, they doubled basically the volume she moves. And she's like, I don't even have that right now. And this like in COVID, right? So like logistics, supply chain issues exist. Yeah. And she's like, but this is my only shot. I'm making this relationship work. Yeah. Right. So if you can foresee some of those pitfalls, you can put things in line, like having a cash flow buffer, slowly starting to increase your inventory levels.
That could help you, yeah, right? Finance those orders so that you can still, think through, what if I got an order? We got an order from Walmart on the shelf and we could not fulfill it because it was too much for our logistics team. We were not set up to keep this shelf stocked. So that was the thing, is they really wanted us to stay in and keep visiting and keep the shelves stocked. And I was like, huge opportunity, but we're not ready for that. Right. Exactly. We would have to change a lot of our supply chain. We'd have to change the way we handle logistics. And so, for us, the smaller retailers are better because we can fulfill small bulk orders. Right.
Yeah.
But then that allowed us the opportunity to really think through, okay, when we grow to this level, what does that even look like?
Yeah. Right.
And what would we need to change in order to fulfill a container load, especially of one of our products that's partially made in the USA, partially made in China, our packaging comes from somewhere else. It's like,
yeah.
This a lot. We have to change all of our operations, move everything over to our factory in Dallas, Texas, and get all of that going, right? So I love the example you gave of think all the way through it, run a beta, get it going, start small, get moving, think about your pricing strategy first. What do your quotes look like? All of that. Okay. And then start making your first sales, right? And
pretty much.
Start reaching out. But you sometimes only get one chance to make that first impression. So you want to think all the way through this before you go ahead and start. Dylan, it's been so great having you on today. I'm so stoked about what you guys are working on in this unique market, an opportunity. And I love that you've thought all the way through this and you've really thought what is going to make you different from the fairs of the world, and those types of things. And I think that you've nailed it. And
I hope so.
I'm excited to see where it goes. So tell everybody, how can they find you? How can they follow this opportunity that Vendrive is building? Tell everybody how they do that.
Yeah. So if you are a reseller by happenstance, come check us out at goaura.com. That's GOAURA.com. For the wholesale side, it's just Vendrive, VENDRIVE.com. New site is launched. You can't join quite yet. Basically what we're doing is we're in closed beta with a handful of brands that we've been having beta tests as we've been building out prototypes. But we have a public launch date for 2/2/22. So in February, early February, we'll be going live where any retailer is able to jump in. And that's when we'll really start pushing for traction. So just keep an eye out. We don't have a form for you to sign right now, but keep an eye out on vendrive.com. We'll do a big push, of course, on 2/2/22.
Amazing. And we'll have to have you back on the show after you get that going. But your advice today has been incredible for brands. I think that all of us, we want to make more sales, especially where a lot of us are trying to get all of our eggs out of the Amazon basket.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that you're offering this opportunity and that you've given us a lot of great advice and some things to think about so that we can be more ready to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, anything else? Any other piece I love to ask? What is your we always ask at the end of our shows, what is keeping you motivated right now? So are you listening to any podcasts? Did you read a book recently that was just like aha moments?
Yeah. Interesting. I read like it's going out of style. It's actually a spinning problem because it's like just books arriving. The biggest thing that's been helpful for me is building the right routine. So I'm going through a flow course right now. So Stephen Kotler talks a lot about flow. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was a researcher and discovered the flow, and flow just being like in the zone. So he has this incredible course, and a lot of it's related to flow, but a lot of it also covers like productivity and good habits. And so one of the things that they talk about is the motivation stack. And so basically what you're doing is you're taking your MTP, which is a massively transformative purpose. This is like, if I can do this in my lifetime, holy crap, life is amazing, massive. Then you break that down into a high hard goal, which is like within the next 5 to 10 years, right? So you're reverse engineering from a very high level. And so my process there is each week, each month, each year, I set another layer here. And then I'm trying to make sure that my weekly goals basically link all the way up. So I know that I'm on the right path, even when it's tough. Listen, we're all in business. It's tough at times, but it's nice to know that I'm not just working for today. I'm working towards this incredibly massively transformative purpose. That gets me super fired up.
Yeah, which research has shown if your goals aren't big enough, you're just going to procrastinate. So I love what I do is a best year ever exercise every year.
Okay.
every year I
Nice.
look at, okay, what would make this the best year ever?
Yeah.
And really think through that on a personal and business and, growth level. And then I work backwards from that, and I set up my goals, and then I do quarterly planning, monthly planning, weekly planning, and even daily planning. To get things moving. So I love that. I'm going to definitely look that up. What was that called? The program that you're going through?
It's called Zero to Dangerous.
Zero to Dangerous.
It's like 8 weeks. So it's like very intense.
Oh, okay.
But it's great. It's been insane, actually. Yeah, it's really cool. It goes super in depth on a lot of things like burnout, proofing, it goes a lot over, positive psychology basics. Like it covers it quite a bit. So it's pretty cool.
I love it. Anything that challenges your thought process and your goals, I think is a really positive, awesome thing. All right, everyone. Thank you, Dylan, for being here. Thank you all for being here on the show. And thanks for listening. Thanks for rating, reviewing, subscribing to the podcast. And we will see you guys next time on the Seller Roundtable. Bye.